The race starts at 3:30 p.m. on Fox Eastern.
This is a good track for you.
Is it?
6 straight top 10 finishes.
Oh, my.
Yeah,
But that 88 is pulling away.
Earnhardt, Johnson, Menard, Blaney, third-generation star Dale Earnhardt Jr. brings him to the flag. Checkered flag waving. It's over. It's Earnhardt. Earnhardt trying to cover all spots.
Oh, yeah! Good job, Junebug.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. Checkered flag at Talladega.
Why is this one so much fun? Because your grin told so many stories on your cool-down lap.
It's just real emotional. I haven't won here in a long time. It was my daddy's birthday a couple days ago. Just real emotional, man.
My nerd world.
And welcome to it, Dale Jr. fans. I'm your host, John Justice, with another look at my favorite driver and probably yours as we head to the paperclip, Martinsville, Virginia, for this weekend's Monster Energy Series Cup race, and hopefully a solid finish for Dale Earnhardt Jr. On the show this week, Dale Jr. had some interesting things to say. I don't have the audio, but I do have the quote. Has some interesting things to say after all the negativity from last weekend's race at California Speedway. So we'll get into that. A little bit of merchandise news, not a lot. There's an article that was out. Charlotte Observer put this article out. Dale Jr. feeling no obligation to race despite dwindling star power. So we will get into that. And then, of course, your race preview. I didn't realize that NASCAR had changed the rules about qualifying, which really kind of screwed us, kind of screwed Junior. I didn't realize that they got rid of the top practice speeds because Dale Jr. on the speed chart, again, can't follow the speed chart, but you can take a little bit away from that. On the speed chart, he had a top 10 car lap time, and because they rained out qualifying and didn't wait it out and to use the lights, which was a point of contention on some of the talk shows this week, Dale Jr., because of his place in the points, is going to start 21st for Sunday's race, which, all things considered, that's tough for Martinsville, but, you go back and forth so many times on that track that, you want Dale Jr. Qualifying better, and he probably could have qualified better, so that's a bit frustrating, but at the same time, he's qualified worse than that and done well there. He's got 3 top 5s in the past 5 races at Martinsville, I think, so if there was a good track. And Dale Jr. mentioned this, so the tracks coming up, whether it's Talladega, Texas, Martinsville, I think Richmond's in there too. Of the tracks that are coming up, this is certainly the sort of the best set of tracks that Dale Jr. has to rebound after what's been just a weak start to the season. So again, that's what we'll go through. We'll talk a little bit about what Junior said, merchandise, this article, and then I'll give you the full sort of race preview for the week. So, boy, it was a disappointing race last week. I don't know what else to say. They never got the car underneath them. It was fast at a point, but then it just didn't seem like they were going anywhere during the race. And then at the end with the multiple restarts, he couldn't seem to make up any other positions. There seemed to be just a couple of bad calls via the pit box, and I think we walked away with a 14th last week, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I want to forget about it. I was frustrated at the end of the race. Junior was frustrated at the end of the race. One of the first things he said on the radio was to Greg Ives, dude, we got to get better. And he's right. They do have to get better. And I don't want to hammer Junior on his aggressiveness because it certainly didn't seem like it was the same issue that we were having the week prior in Phoenix, but I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team right now. I really, really don't. And I was frustrated at the end of the race. And a lot of the fans were frustrated. And there's different levels of frustration that we as fans emote, right? Some of us get really vocal just about what we see and specifics, and I try to stay more specifics and fact-based. and others just sort of take this sort of blanket frustration where they really get kind of irrational in their anger over Junior not running better, and I'd like to believe that's what that he was referring to. So again, it's tough, but Junior obviously felt frustrated himself enough to go to Twitter and make comments, and he commented several times. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can't pull these up before I get to the quote of what he said on the podcast this week. And this is one of the things that I would love if I ever had the opportunity to email or to not to email. My apologies. I've got a brain fart there. If I ever had the opportunity to sit down, and one day I know that I will, but if I ever had the opportunity to sit down and interview Dale Jr., I would want to interview him as a fan. I would want to interview him from this perspective of what we as fans see and what we think and how we feel. And like if I had the opportunity to interview him, I'd like to talk about, how us fans feel. And I'm really just stalling because I was looking for his tweet. Here we go. After the race is over, he said this: "I'm glad our fans aren't okay with 16th. That means they hold us to the same standard that we have for ourselves. We will keep grinding." Okay, so he was frustrated. And there's some other tweets that I want to actually, now that I'm looking at this, we'll do a bit of a tweet section to the podcast this week because there's a couple of different tweets that I'd like to go and address. One of these particularly when it's based off of the passes with this new downforce package. We'll talk a bit about that. But Dale Jr. on his podcast this week said that talking about the fans complaining, says you're talking about my family when we complain, and I'll let me in there. When we complain about Junior and his team, when we're talking about his family. Okay. I don't disagree with that, and I don't think that he was specifically talking to a fan like me or you if you're not irrational over your complaints. I think he's talking about more of the irrational complaints that always erupt in the wake of a bad Dale Jr. finish. I will say this, and this is the conversation that I would like, that I think would be a very interesting one, and one that I think Dale Jr. would be open to, is that what level of criticism is he comfortable with fans having for those of us fans that do devote the money and the effort to follow him? I don't feel obligated to anything as a Dale Jr. fan. It's a choice that I've made, and it is just a sport, and it is just NASCAR, and he is just a person. Okay, so I don't misunderstand that I'm sitting here saying that, he has an obligation to run well for me as a fan. I don't believe that. I'm choosing to be a fan of Dale Jr.'s. I appreciate the fact that he acknowledges his fans the way that he does. I think he does it more than a lot of different drivers. A lot of other drivers, I should say. However, if he doesn't run well, and we feel like the effort's not being put in, and it hasn't happened very often, but for those of us that do go and support Junior and watch him every Sunday and buy the merchandise that they sell and purchase the items of the sponsors that adorn his fire suit and his race cars, that to me, at a bare minimum, affords us the ability to be critical if we feel like our driver isn't running fast enough, or if the team isn't working hard enough, or if Greg Ives isn't making the right calls on pit road, or making the right adjustments in the race car. And again, it doesn't go beyond that. It's just as to say that if Junior, and I'm not saying that he was, but if he was saying, yeah, I don't like the criticism because you're talking about my family, if it was that way, to that I would say, well, as a fan, I'm buying the products of your sponsors, I'm buying your gear, and that affords me to have an opinion to say that I think Greg Ives is making bad calls on the pit box, knowing full well that I'm just a person, not a crew chief. Or I don't think the communication between you guys is good. When your crew chief seems to almost throw his hands up on the radio. It didn't happen last week, but it did happen at Phoenix. Or when we feel that not enough effort is being made. And I know that may be not fair, but again, as fans that purchase items, I think that we are allowed to do that, and I would hope that Dale Jr. accepts that. And I think that he does. When he makes a quote like you're talking about my family, he's defending his group and his people that are getting irrationally criticized, I'd like to believe, because Junior certainly doesn't seem to be a person that shies away from criticism or people calling attention to it. I mean, he did say point blank that they run as hard as they can. And to that I say, yeah, I do agree, but I also have seen some times when it feels like we're settling for certain positions, or some teams seem to be fighting harder. And this comes with the territory. I hope they turn it around this weekend. This is a team that looks like a team that we saw several years ago that I do not want to talk about in the dark years. And I hope that we see something better and different out of the team. And certainly so far, it would seem to indicate that. I'm looking at the speed charts so far. There's one more practice left. And then I'll, secret be told, I'm going to record this podcast in 2 segments. This is the first segment. First practice for Saturday just finished, and I'm going to pause it, and then I'm going to come back after second practice, and I'll give you my prediction of how I feel Junior is going to run on Sunday. But if I just bring up the speed charts right now from first practice, yeah, he's currently about 13th fastest and best 10 consecutive lap average. A little bit off the pace from the leaders. But again, this is the first practice on Saturday, so the second practice is going to be more indicative of what the track's actually going to be like when they race. And again, we'll get into more of that coming up in the latter half of the podcast. So Martinsville's been good to him in the past. He's won there. He's been fast there, and I think we have the opportunity to at least get a top 10 this weekend. But again, I'll give you my full assessment of how fast the car is and what my expectation is on Sunday here at the end of the podcast. The only thing I want to mention about merchandise this week is nothing new that I can see, apart from if you go to dalejr.com, there is a 600th career start t-shirt with the Exalta paint scheme. That's really cool. That is available at the website. You can go and check out. So that's the only merchandise news that I have for this week. It is a really nice looking t-shirt. Not a memorable race for the 600 start, but if you're one who's into collecting t-shirts like I am, it would be a good one to go and get your hands on. All right, so let's go here, and then we'll give you the race preview portion of the podcast this week. Article in the Charlotte Observer this weekend. Dale Jr. said on Thursday, as the headliner at the Texas Motor Speedway Media Day, I only race cars because it's fun. I just enjoy working with my team and my guys, the camaraderie, the friendships. I just enjoy the relationships and friendships, and that's why I drive. Obviously, we've got a big fan base that has a lot of fun when we do well, so you'd like to be out there and to run well when you're doing it. Okay. Now, the article goes on to say his presence is felt just as much the other way, meaning there's no questioning Dale Jr.'s reach. He missed 18 races last season, including Texas Motor Speedway in November. The track made it a public event to have Dale Jr. there, and fans were clearly thrilled to partake in the action. He's the biggest name in the sport without question, according to the Texas Motor Speedway president. To have him here on Media Day, which is really important for our sport because this is a strong market, and I'd like to think will forever be linked and connected with Dale Jr. Yes, Texas will be. It's the track where Earnhardt captured his first Xfinity Series and Cup wins and has contended ever since. That's something that will always connect the two together. As Earnhardt put it, you never forget where you won your first race, and neither do your fans. So I always look forward to coming here. This is a track that puts on a really good show. I'm happy every time we come here and expect to do well. He hasn't done well so far this season, according to the article, and the article's right, failing to post a top 10 run in the first 5 opening races. Maybe Texas will be the track where he jumpstarts it, much like he jumpstarted his career there with his first Cup win in April of 2000. In the 27 races at Texas since his win, Earnhardt has 16 top 10s, including 3 runner-ups, but he's yet to return to victory lane. Certainly would have thought we'd have a few by now, Earnhardt said. We've had some good close opportunities, some good runs, and great cars. I thought we've we would have won races there. I don't know how close we are to getting the next one. You